stellar work with those of us who seek to make the lives of others better.
The Industrial Areas Foundation is comprised of 2 regions, West Southwest IAF and Metro IAF. Let's hear recent testimonies from a few of the 26 organizations east of the Mississippi that make up Metro IAF.
My name is Maricar Popiña, Deputy Director of the North Carolina Congress of Latino Organizations. We thank CCHD for their commitment to our work with Latino immigrants. Thanks to their support, we were able to hold public meetings with candidates for sheriffs where more than 2,200 North Carolina residents participated. As a result, those 5 who were elected officially announced that they would end 287G agreements and won't collaborate with ICE in separating families. In addition to that, sheriffs in Mecklenburg and Wake counties also created new community engagement units to work with immigrant families. Our families now feel more relief when running their everyday errands. Felicitaciones CCHD en su aniversario y otra vez les agradecemos por su contribución en incrementar el poder de la comunidad latina en Carolina del Norte. Muchas gracias.
Turnaround Tuesday was developed by unemployed people impacted by uninformed employers.
CCHD invested in us as we trained leaders to listen around the barriers that held people back, such as criminal records, inadequate transportation, and non-traditional work.
I spent 22 and a half years incarcerated. Getting out, I was confused. I didn't know which way to turn. But when I came across Turnaround Tuesday, who I had heard about while incarcerated, they helped me. They trained me, they taught me, they built me up with confidence, and ultimately they gave me a job. And now I'm the project organizer for Turnaround Tuesday.
We have employed over 950 job placements, which means people are on career paths, paying taxes, buying cars and homes, sending their kids to college, and not only building wealth, but gaining greater dignity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you can see, our joint efforts together has created some outstanding work in this nation. So we take this opportunity, the Industrial Areas Foundation, to say, well done, Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Continue the efforts for another 50 years, and we will help create the beloved community.
As you can see, for more than 5 decades, CCHD, one more.
There's more.
The Alliance for Catholic Education, ACE, at the University of Notre Dame was part of some years ago. The CCHD grant helped us to increase Latino enrollment in Catholic schools in several dioceses around the country. We realized early on that the work of making Catholic schools available, accessible, and affordable to Latino children and families needed to have someone dedicated to this work at full-time at the diocesan level. So a CCHD grant was awarded to several dioceses that would assist them to hire a full-time person to oversee and coordinate this effort in the Archdiocese of Seattle and in the Diocese of Richmond, Camden, and Oakland. The enrollment of Latino children in Catholic schools grew in each of these dioceses where CCHD funded a full-time person to do this work. We remain grateful for this collaboration between the CCHD, various dioceses, and the Alliance for Catholic Education at the University of Notre Dame. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
A brincar la cerca.
I started with the Martinez family 3 years ago. Prepare's got a little bookcase and some donated books, and I started reading to everybody, and they loved that. One of the things Prepare's does is introduce people like me to people like the Martinez. The triplets will age out of the Prepare's program in 2 years, but they're never going to age out of my heart, and I'm always going to be involved with that family.
Pues me agrada su compañía.
I really appreciate Anne and her time with me. I especially appreciate the care she gives to my children, the love that she gives to the children.
It's a social justice ministry in that we are helping empower people who are pretty powerless.
When we walk alongside families that are not only trying to become the best parent that they can, but are also confronting very significant hardship, this is where Prepares comes to life. And in this way, we bridge our life and social justice priorities. Today, it's a distinct privilege to convey our gratitude to the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. The work of Prepares ensures that all families in the state of Washington are able to count on a compassionate response by the Catholic community. And it has been one of our greatest accomplishments. We feel strongly that because of the investment of CCHD, Prepares is a model that values replication. On behalf of Catholic Charities serving Central Washington and the Yakima Diocese, it is important that today we acknowledge the many donors that have made this work possible. Mil gracias a cada uno de ustedes.
As you can see, for more than 5 decades, CCHD has been supporting initiatives that empower families, immigrants, new moms, the elderly, and those in need to encounter their neighbours and bring about a systemic change that overcomes divisions. Through the cultivation of relationships with national networks, local community groups, and partnerships across racial, geographic, ecumenical, and interfaith lines, the campaign has allowed the Church to stand in solidarity with communities in times of their greatest need. In the wake of the 2014 shooting of Michael Brown and preceding unrest in Ferguson, Missouri, Metropolitan Congregations United quickly responded with their program called Sacred Conversations on Race Plus Action, as a way to provide safe and facilitate opportunities for people to engage with each other in addressing the structural racism that was affecting their lives. To combat rising unemployment among textile and immigrant workers in rural North Carolina, Opportunity Threads was formed as a worker-owned cooperative that provides just wages, safe working conditions, and employee ownership. Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation is a grassroots community development organization that works to improve the quality of life for low-income Native American families on the Pine Ridge Reservation by building affordable housing, creating equity and wealth among community members. CCHD is solidarity in action, and as such has had a profound impact on young adults. We had the pleasure of celebrating one such young person last night at the Cardinal Bernardine Award reception, where we honoured Ogechi Akalabere for her work to empower low-income parents and to help parishes understand equity and racism. Many more young people have encountered the work of CCHD through our internship program, which over the last 30 years has provided over 500 fully funded internships in more than half the dioceses in the United States. Whether or not they choose a professional career in the Church, our intern alumni specifically named their experience with CCHD as animating for them in how they live their lives, practice their faith, and even raise their families. For these last 50 years, CCHD has embodied the call of the church to go to the margins, to touch and heal the wounds of others, to go to the peripheries. Now more than ever, we need the work of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development so that our parishes can continue to be places of transformation, where barriers are broken down and divisions are overcome. The Campaign for Human Development stands ready to continue our work to empower our most marginalized neighbors to break the cycle of poverty. In closing, I thank you, Brother Bishops, for your tireless support of the campaign and for the organizations that we have funded in your diocese over the last 50 years. I thank you on behalf of the tens of thousands of beneficiaries of your unselfish support and the sacrifices of our people. All these beneficiaries, their lives have been changed and improved, and they themselves have changed the reality of the world around them. I think Pope Francis just on Sunday in his homily said that when the poor unite together and organize, take action to improve the circumstances that are affecting their lives, then they bring something new into the world. Something new begins, and they bring new hope to all of us. It's the poor who give us hope by doing this work. So we ask you to continue to support us as all of us together bring hope to a world that needs it so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop O'Connell, and thank you, the subcommittee, for all this amazing work that CCHD is doing in our country. So please thank everybody for that, and we are going to skip the questions because we have just 3 more brief presentations. So, so thank you very much, and we can ask now Bishop Frank Cajano, and Mr. who is the chairman of Catholic Relief Services, and Mr. Sean Gallagher is president of CRS, for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Archbishop Gomez, for the opportunity to give this brief presentation on CRS. My dear brothers, in a world marked with growing division and rancor, growing poverty, we all know that the Church stands as the beacon of hope and service and unity for the world's suffering and their poor. Catholic Relief Services, which is our international humanitarian agency, seeks to be the agent to provide that hope and that unity and service in its global programming and engagement throughout the United States. And that is possible because of your support, for which I and everyone at CRS is deeply grateful. This evening, Sean Callahan, who is sitting behind me, he is CRS's president and CEO, and I will share briefly some vignettes, summary of the great life-changing and saving mission of CRS, which is motivated by our Catholic faith that knows no bounds. We together are speaking as one and speaking for millions. So allow me to begin by offering thanks first and foremost for the authorization of our special collection for Haiti. As you know, our Haitian brothers and sisters have been dealing with many different challenges and crises, from the pandemic, political and economic instability, hunger, gang violence, and natural disasters. After the latest earthquake, there were 650,000 families in need of assistance. And a person like Anis here, who is 8 months pregnant, who lost her home and living with a neighbor, is just one of those 650,000. But she's resilient precisely because when she's given the tools to help herself, she can. And she received those tools from our CRS. CRS has been in Haiti since 1954. And after this last earthquake, it took just 4 days for us to begin to distribute supplies, to repair homes, emergency shelter. And by the end of October, we should be collectively proud that we helped 18,000 families with sanitation assistance, emergency shelter, and now we're moving into recovery to give them dignified transitional shelters, permanent homes, restoring water, providing some employment, looking for their emotional well-being, and preventing family separation. Again, we work as one church, and our Caritas family is working as one church. So CRS is assisting Caritas Haiti, as well as Caritas agencies as far away as Australia. Brothers, we know 2021 has been challenging for our diocese and for people around the world. But together, our conference and our CRS has done great work. Allow me an example. Recently, there was the bipartisan passage of the Global Child Thrive Act by the U.S. Congress, and it mandates by law that every childhood development activity be integrated into relevant U.S. foreign aid programs. We achieved this bipartisan victory because Congress heard from the voices of whom? Our parishioners, our conference, and CRS. By working together, then, we were able to move this initiative forward so that millions of children can achieve their God-given potential. I ask you to give your attention to this short video clip from Deacon Mark Duffy from the Archdiocese of Chicago.
During the past year, I've had the opportunity to lead or participate in about a dozen virtual meetings or phone calls with members of Congress and their staff people. One of the important overall things that I've discovered is just how much goodwill, eagerness, and positivity has been evident from our friends in Washington, D.C. One of our asks was preventing the use of U.S. taxpayer dollars for abortion in foreign aid funding. Kate acknowledged our Catholic position on that issue and said she would share our point of view. But she also noted that that is one area where her boss and CRS aren't exactly aligned in our convictions. It was an example of a civil and straightforward exchange, even though there were differences of opinion, all in a conversation of trust, which was very heartening. My friends, in my own experience, our Global Fellows' work of advocacy has been a wonderful opportunity to be an ambassador for Jesus, knowing that in our CRS partnerships, we help fulfill his words. Whatever you did for one of these least brothers or sisters of mine, you did for me.
Deacon Mark is a CRS Global Fellow, and the Global Fellowship Program is just one way CRS helps Catholics to work together to end global poverty and uphold the dignity of every human being, most especially our sisters and brothers in need. It is with your cooperation, dear brothers, that CRS is able to gather people in our respective dioceses to enact their faith that knows no bounds. By creating CRS chapters, there are 118 in the country, bringing together university students, parishioners, peoples of goodwill, to live out their missionary discipleship, and now we're moving into the high schools. There are 13 CRS clubs achieving the same thing, harnessing the passion of our high schoolers to fight for a more just and peaceful world. At CRS, we are convinced that the CRS mission can be a powerful evangelical tool to engage our young people and young adults, because we can meet them where they are, to help them to figure and harness their desire to do good, to make a difference, to care for their sisters and brothers, and to care for our common home. As you will see here, as CRS is doing with the young Nicaraguans who are receiving training through the Jóvenes Constructores program, Youth Build. CRS is committed by 2030 to build the skills of 5 million youth and help 3.5 million young people to find gainful employment. Now I'm going to turn our presentation to Sean Callahan, who, as you will know, or should know, just recently returned from Afghanistan, going personally in support of the mission that we are sponsoring in Afghanistan to complete the presentation. Sean?
Thank you, Bishop Cajano. At a time globally, a historic time of need, there's a thirst for unity, for subsidiarity, and for solidarity. And we come together as a church, a global church, to respond to that need, working with the conference, Catholic Charities, Clinic, CCHD, MRS, and others, and each of us strengthens that approach. As many of you know, during the COVID pandemic, the church did not close. CRS, working with USCCB, the Vatican, and Caritas International, advocated for equity in the distribution of vaccines. And we worked with Catholic health facilities around the world to make sure they had adequate water supply so that they could ensure that people could wash hands and had safe drinking water. CRS is also reaching out in Ethiopia, where over 13 million people are in need, and CRS has been asked to feed 6.3 million of them at this time of crisis and difficulty. As Bishop Cajano just said, I just returned from a week in Afghanistan where our over 300 colleagues have been continuing to work. 23 million people, 58% of the population, are in a crisis right now. Families are going hungry and selling their assets. CRS is working in the field, reaching over 20,000 young people in schools, providing agriculture and health support at this time. We're cautious but optimistic about what the future might bring. And we presented to the leadership that's currently in the country, and they've allowed us to have our women leaders and minorities participate in all of our programs throughout the country. In the Sahel right now, there's grave violence and increased displacement and migration. We're working closely with your brother bishops in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to assist in a program that will stimulate peace in those countries. As Cardinal Philippe Ouedraogo of Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso said, "Alone we are not able to create peace in our country. We have to be together." We are helping to magnify the prophetic voice of the church in the Sahel and in Guatemala. As you can see in this photograph, Cardinal Ramasini, the Bishop of Huehuetenango, is speaking with the U.S. Administrator, Samantha Power, when she traveled to Central America to visit CRS's work. It's crucial that we make sure that the voice of the local church is heard in these efforts. And this is an example of the Episcopal Conference of Cameroon, who just received a program from the U.S. government to assist with the HIV/AIDS pandemic. A reason that we do this is to reach out on behalf of Christ and our neighbor, responding to his call to serve the least of our sisters and brothers. As we're in this period of great global need, Your Eminences and Your Excellencies, CRS is your agency, motivated by the Catholic faith and the gospel, and to demonstrate that our faith shows no bounds.
while eradicating malaria, partnering for change, and reaching the forgotten. Faith Knows No Bounds is our brand, a rallying cry, a prayer, the voice of employees, volunteers, partners, donors, and you. It's time to speak as one while speaking for millions. When faith knows no bounds, our work knows no bounds. And there's no limit to how far we can go to change the world.
So, brothers, to conclude, I think all of us here, want to express our thanks to Sean Callahan for his extraordinary leadership, for the 6,700 employees and co-workers that are working in 114 countries to do the work of Christ. Why don't we show our gratitude and thanks for that? Archbishop, if anyone has any thoughts or questions?
I was thinking that maybe we have to skip the questions or comments because
that's an excellent idea.
So, but I just want to thank Bishop Cayano and Mr. Callahan for the extraordinary work that CRS is doing all over the world. Thank you very much. Brothers, we wanted to finish the public session today because we have to move to another ballroom tomorrow morning. So if you have a little patience, we still have a couple of presentations. Again, I hope they're going to be brief presentations. So now I call on Sister Donna Markham, President and CEO of Catholic Charities USA, to present a brief update. Sister.
Thank you, Archbishop.
Welcome.
Well, you know, I had a wonderful Irish nun who told me one time, the mind can only absorb what the hindsight can tolerate. And I think you're probably at the limit. I will abbreviate my remarks. I need to share some of this with you because I think it's important as we enter into the synodal process. I would first of all say that as Pope Francis invited us to participate in the process, he really was inviting us to walk together with people along the margins of society and engage in holy listening. We know that Catholic Charities folks, the 50,000 Catholic Charities employees, walk along the fringes. They walk along the margins and accompany those who are there. And each day, our employees, our co-workers, hear poignant stories of families and individuals just trying to survive. What are we hearing? I'm hungry. I'm sick. I lost my job. I'm frightened. I'm lonely. I had to flee my country. I have nothing. I don't have anywhere to live. And then comes the question that resides in all of our hearts. Can you please help me? Catholic Charities workers certainly aren't the only ones who hear that question posed. Our friends at CRS hear that all over the world. You hear that in your dioceses. And I suspect you count on some of us to help to respond in some concrete way to those plaintive cries. It's a question that's desperate for some people, often needing an immediate response. As Catholic Charities sites blanket the country and the U.S. territories, we, along with hundreds of thousands of partners in mission, serve on the front lines of human suffering in the name of the Church. Catholic Charities is the largest comprehensive social service organization in the United States, second only to the federal government. Our 250,000 volunteers join us in serving over 15 million people every year. And this past year is as no surprise. It's stretched us beyond all imagining as we've stepped up to address food shortages, evictions, natural disasters, escalating homelessness, the swell of migrants and refugees coming to our country, and the pandemic with its resultant national grieving. You see on the screen how we've attempted to respond to that question. Can you help me? In the interests of time today, I just want to focus on one sentence that we've heard repeatedly over the past couple of years in louder and louder voice. I have nowhere to live. Right now, over 580,000 people are homeless as a result of mental illness, inability to access a social safety net, or simply because they don't have the money to pay their rent. And this doesn't include the migrants and the refugees who have come to our country this past year. The real number of homeless people is probably closer to 1 million. In addition, those who are currently able to pay rent are in very precarious situations due to diminishing income and rising costs. 2/3 of renters cannot begin to consider ever buying a home. The shortage of affordable housing is estimated to be in the range of 5 to 10 million units. And this is where I think Catholic Charities, in relationship to our dioceses, our religious congregations, might be able to help with this situation. I really believe the church can make a difference. 2 years ago, I spoke with you about the Healthy Housing Initiative, where we were targeting the chronically homeless, those who most people don't want to even touch to try to get housed. I shared with you the targets that we have in the 5 pilot cities. Briefly, I just want to say that we have completed about 1.5 years of this 5-year pilot, and we have reached our target of over 20% of those chronically homeless are successfully housed in the diocesan properties, converted church properties, and new construction. That's a very daunting task. There's another whole dimension of affordable housing that I would like to just speak to you about very briefly. It's a little less complex. Funding sources are examples. There are some examples on the slide. If you in your own dioceses have reason to want to hold on to church property and repurpose it, keeping it in the family, we can help, through Catholic Charities, we can help you to transform that property into affordable housing units. And that can be for low-income families, seniors, veterans, whoever, depending on your diocesan situation. It keeps us from having to alienate property. It also eventually will turn into a way to actually help the programs and people stay housed, help the dioceses, help Catholic Charities programming continue. So please know that we will do whatever we can to support you. I will probably send out a more detailed description of this because this is not the time to try to share this with you. I realize that. If you get a letter from me that says Catholic Charities USA, please open it. Okay? And I'll try and explain it more fully there. But we are doing a lot as Catholics in this country to care for people who are in significant emotional, spiritual, and physical need. We should be proud that our church, through Catholic Charities alone, has provided $5.1 billion in assistance to suffering people during this last year. We are proud to be your listening partners along the synodal way, and we're honored to be able to respond to you, to whatever you might be hearing. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Donna, for your leadership and the amazing work that Catholic Charities USA is doing. So we are very grateful for that, and you are in our praise in a special way. So now, move to Mrs. Anna Marie Gallagher, the Executive Director of the Catholic Legal Immigration Network, for an update on Clinic.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. You'll be happy to know that I reduced my 4 pages of single-spaced remarks to 1 page written 4 bullet points.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Anna Gallagher. I am the Executive Director of the Catholic Legal Immigration Network, and I'm very pleased to meet you. Before I go to my first bullet point, I'd like to thank my board and ask them to stand and be recognized, the board members that are here. Thank you. I'd also like to thank USCCB and MRS for all the support that you give the clinic in implementing our mission. So again, I'm Anna Gallagher. I am the proud daughter of Irish immigrants from Donegal, Ireland, and I do the work that I do because of what they taught me. So Clinic is a network of 441 nonprofit organizations, Catholic and non-Catholic, providing immigration legal services to thousands of asylum seekers and migrants from across the United States. This is a time of particular challenge and particular opportunity. I'm proud to say that we have grown from an organization of a handful of affiliates started by Bishop DiMarzio in the 1980s during the first amnesty to now over 400 affiliates. And we are prepared for the second amnesty. The Catholic Church, you should be proud that the Catholic Church created what I call the largest poor people's immigration law firm in the country. You reach thousands and thousands of men and women across this country and at our borders. Our staff and our affiliates work with asylum seekers at the borders, Afghan arrivals, immigrants and asylum seekers in the United States seeking protection and status. The need is greater than ever now. Thousands of men, women, and children are living in misery at our southern borders, waiting for access to justice. Thousands of Haitians have been deported from the United States and continue to be deported without access to justice. Millions of our brothers and sisters, our immigrant brothers and sisters, are in the United States without status, caring for our children, working in our hospitals, cleaning our homes, and providing essential services without status. As we wait, we are very hopeful that legalization will happen. It will be anywhere between 3 million to 11 million. Our great hope is that it will be 11 million. Clinic is part of a coalition, the Ready to Stay Coalition, made up of national and regional partners across the United States who are preparing and building capacity among our affiliates and other organizations in your communities. So what I would ask you as you return home to your dioceses and communities, to meet with the affiliates in your communities, to support them in providing and ensuring that our immigrant brothers and sisters in our churches, in our parishes, and in our communities have access to legal representation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna. And please thank you also to the board of Clinic and all the employees of the organization. Thank you very much. Then finally, Bishop Mario Dorsonville has asked for 5 minutes with an update on immigration reform and the church's voice. So,
thank you, Archbishop Gomez. It will be 4 minutes.
Great.
I'll try. We know perfectly that for decades, the Conference of Bishops have been advocating and trying to be the companions of our immigrants and especially those who are for years waiting for a comprehensive immigration reform. As we know, there is much silence about this issue. Therefore, we consider with the MRS staff that it would be important for all of you, my dear brothers, to have an update and especially to go deeper in the reflection what the church's voice means today for our immigrant population and the immigrant communities. That's the reason why we produce a document that has been already emailed to all of you called Immigration Reform and the Church's Voice, Understanding the Problem and Seeking Solutions. You have received it already, you have it already, and we plan in the first week in December to mail a paper copy to all of you. What is our request for you? First of all, we beg you to spend time reading this document. There are 3 points that I would like to make emphasis. The first one is to exhort you one more time to go through the line of advocacy. The second one is to pray, and the third one is to accompany our community in a very difficult time. Then advocacy cannot be done without facts. And that's why this document will give you a lot of statistical and meaningful report for you to analyze, to go deeper. The good point is that the statistical report is pointed out that when we speak about DACA recipients, dreamers, TPS recipients, and farmer workers, 70% of the will of the American people really want an immigration reform for these groups. In that perspective, I guess that it's important for us to reaffirm and confirm how important would be to clarify the common misconception of public perceptions about these issues and the necessary elements of a comprehensive immigration reform. If you go through these pages, I'm sure that you will find a way to assimilate it and to be able to advocate. The second point, prayer. I guess that since we were priests, people didn't come to us to ask us to build a house or to buy something for them. People always looked for us to pray for them and pray with them. As we are at the doors of the celebration of Our Lady of Guadalupe, just want to bring you an example of what we do in the Archdiocese of Washington. We organize a pilgrimage from Sacred Heart Church to the National Shrine, where His Eminence Cardinal Gregory celebrates the Mass with all the community, immigrant communities and the faithful of the Archdiocese. It is a walk this year in silence. In silence because we don't hear anything about the immigration reform, because it's important sometimes, more than speaking, perhaps to take that moment of silence in our hearts, that the Holy Spirit might be continue to guide us. Prayer is important. Walking with Mary is important. She will be an intercessor for our immigrant community. I know several dioceses really brings the presence of this feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, but our hope is that everyone may be embracing this sense of praying together with our immigrant communities. You will be surprised to see how many different cultural backgrounds they bring together in one faith, many faces, one house, God's house. And finally, accompaniment. It's so important to say, I'm here for you. We just can't make the laws. We're not the ones who are going to be able to transform it or to make any legislation on behalf of immigrants. But being our brothers and our sisters, the sheep that God in His love has entrusted into our care, is so important to our vocation. Therefore, finally, I just want to thank you for the time you are going to spend reading this document. It is important for you to know that more than statistical reports and words, this document has human faces and, why not, human tragedy. And when there are pain, remember, we can bring love and hope and presence of God. May the Lord continue to bless your episcopal work, your leadership, your voice, and especially the care and compassion that we as pastors are obligated in conscience to give to our people, and that Our Lady of Guadalupe may continue to bless our immigrant community, that we might be able to see sooner or later the miracle of giving them a real status in this country. This is a matter of justice. It's a matter of recognition of so many millions of people who are in many ways helping us to build up the economy, the family, the future of our own country. May the Lord God bless you. And I really don't want to end my words without exhorting you with much faith and hope together to pray for our immigrant community through the intercession of Our Lady of Guadalupe, as we say, Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor es contigo, bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres y bendito es el fruto de tu vientre Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros los pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amén. God bless you, brothers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bishop Dorsonville, and please thank the Committee on Migration and the staff of the committee for us. Brothers, I was just reflecting that how this afternoon has been just an extraordinary testimony of the service to the people of God in our country. Just think about journeying together, called to the joy of love, walking with moms in need, the Synod of Bishops, Cchd, CRS, Catholic Charities, Clinic, and the Committee on Migration. Thanks be to God.
Amen.
So, brothers, this concludes the public portion for our meeting. I would like to thank our official observers, media representatives, and others who were able to attend the meeting with us. It is a blessing to be able to gather in person to conduct our business. Thank you for joining us. Brothers, we will now adjourn until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for executive session. Before we conclude, Father Foley has some announcements.
Thank you, Archbishop. Your Eminences and Excellencies, the meeting room that we are in right now will be closed to us tomorrow. Our meeting tomorrow will be one floor down in the third floor grand ballroom. That will be for breakfast and for our meeting and prayer. So please take with you all your personal belongings and everything that you would like to take with you and keep for your own. Also, please make sure you have the Magnificat for tomorrow's prayer. So as I said, this room will be closed, and we will be moving down to the third floor. Thank you.
He's asking a question over there. The names?
No, the name tags you can leave if you don't want them. So
I think you know who you are. So let's begin with the glory be. In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Joseph, pray for us. Our Lady Guadalupe, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, brothers.
everyone, or good evening, I should say. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the second and final press conference for the 2021 November General Assembly of the U.S. Bishops' Meeting in Baltimore. My name is Chieko Noguchi, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. The host of our press conference is Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Chairman of the USCCB's Committee for Communications. Bishop Burbidge, thank you for your leadership of the committee. I'd like to hand it over to you for introduction of our bishop panelists.
Thank you, Chieko. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thanks for hanging in there. We did a lot this afternoon, and it's probably one of the later afternoons I can recall. So lots of information. So thanks for hanging in there with us. It was a beautiful day for us. One thing that was extremely clear is the love our bishops have for the gift of the Holy Eucharist and our desire to renew Eucharistic wonder and awe throughout our church and throughout our country. And it was a very powerful presentations, and it was great to see such Eucharistic wonder and awe and that commitment to go forward. So let me just make sure we introduce everyone who's here. I'm joined here by 4 bishop chairmen to talk about some of the items that were presented on the assembly floor today. Bishop Kevin Rhodes of Fort Wayne, South Bend is the chairman of the Committee on Doctrine. His committee drafted and led the work of the bishops on a statement on the Eucharist that was discussed and voted on by the bishops today. Bishop Andrew Cousins, who Bishop Designate of Crookston and chairman of USCCB's Committee for Evangelization and Catechesis. Bishop Cousins joined us yesterday afternoon and agreed to come back, so thank you, Bishop, to talk about the Eucharistic Revival Initiative and a national event in 2024, which he did so with such great enthusiasm at our conference meeting today, assembly meeting. We were also given an update on Journeying Together, the process of dialogue and encounter, focused on the church's ministry with youth and young adults this afternoon. Archbishop Perez, the chairman of the Committee on Cultural Diversity in the church, gave us the update, and we have Bishop Arturo Cepeda, Auxiliary Bishop of Detroit, and incoming chairman for the Cultural Diversity Committee with us today. And finally, Bishop David O'Connell, the Auxiliary Bishop of Los Angeles and chairman of the subcommittee for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, gave a presentation on Cchd, the Bishop's Anti-Poverty Initiative, which recently celebrated 50 years. Thank you, my brother bishops, for being here. Chieko, if you would field our questions.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We'll open the floor up to questions from members of the media. If you have a question, please raise your hand or indicate to me, and when you're called upon, please announce your name and your question and the bishop whom you wish to address. Okay. Pablo.
Pablo K. from Angeles News, Archdiocese of Los Angeles. My question is for any of the bishops. Going into this fall assembly, there was a lot of talk of division in the conference. A lot of people were terming this document controversial, but we didn't see much of that in the public sessions. And it's understood that one of the decisions that was made in the June meeting was to have these regional meetings to discuss and to build towards the document on the Eucharist. And then, of course, you had more than one closed-door session in this meeting. So what were those meetings like, and how did somehow this consensus emerge?
So I think Bishop Rhodes' committee did tremendous work on the document. Perhaps you could begin, Bishop.
Sure. Thank you for that question. Today we had a presentation on synodality, and I think the experience of the last several months in preparing the Eucharist document was a true experience of synodality among the bishops. Since June, there's been a lot of prayer. There's been the regional meetings, and bishops were very engaged. Our committee received over 100 pages of summary comments from the regional meetings. So part of synodality, of course, is listening. So there was a lot of listening, a lot of bishops sharing with each other. So it was a tremendous amount of material that our committee received. But I think there was great engagement of the bishops, even those who disagreed on particular points. But bishops listened to each other and prayed together, and we came to a consensus. I mean, the vote today, I think, showed that. So I was very pleased. I think we have a rich document that's going to be a very good help and kind of foundation in a way for the Eucharistic revival. And that's been my hope all along, that this would contribute to a deepening of faith in the Holy Eucharist and also greater participation of our people in Sunday Mass and participation in the church.
Since the document, you know, as we mentioned yesterday, does spring from our own strategic plan and also very much connected to our Eucharistic revival, which Bishop Cousins spoke about today. Maybe Bishop Cousins, you would like to add a few words?
Yeah, I think there was a kind of synergy that happened even in the regional meetings that I was a part of between the document and the revival, and that the bishops recognize the great crisis we have in Eucharistic faith in our country, and the bishops have a real desire to do something about that, and I think that helped to spur the unity around the document, that the document be focused on that crisis and help to strengthen it. So I would say, you know, we all experienced it. I think we saw it in the room this morning, that when you talk about the revival, the bishops light up, and they light up because they're excited about trying to make a difference in what we all see as a great pastoral problem and a great pastoral need.
Thank you, Pablo.
Okay. Next question goes to Josh.
Hi, I'm Joshua Mackel with the National Catholic Reporter. I have a kind of a curiosity for Bishop Rhodes, if you have a second. I noticed that during the vote on the communion text today, there was no mention of seeking a recognitio or an approval from the Holy See on the text. I'm wondering if you could explain that, or if there's not going to be that process. And as I understand it, without the recognitio, the document can't be like a doctrinal declaration. What kind of weight does it have, and kind of what was the purpose of this year-long of discussion coming to this document if it's not going to get that recognitio?
Yeah, thank you. It is not required to have the recognitio, because it's really expressing what the present doctrine, what the doctrine of the church is. So there's nothing new in that sense that would require a recognitio from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith or the Vatican. I think, though, what is I think very helpful is that we concentrate on really a few of the major issues that we're most concerned about, and that is a clear understanding of that doctrine, focusing on the Eucharist as the sacrifice of Christ, the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, and our communion with Christ and one another through the Eucharist. So we took some of the rich teachings of our tradition, and especially also the ecclesiology of communion from the Second Vatican Council. That's very prominent in the text, but tried to present it in a way that it would, you know, we couldn't cover all aspects of the great mystery of the Eucharist. So we focused on those that we think are particularly important, where people, hopefully we can educate and inspire people on those areas. And of course, the second part on our response to the gift of the Eucharist, there we get into the importance of thanksgiving, the importance of Mass attendance, the importance of living the Eucharist. There's a section on how the Eucharist commits us to the poor, to the life and dignity of the human person, and how we're sent forth to really bring the love of Christ that becomes present on the altar to the world.
Next question goes to Dennis Sadowski.
Thank you. Thank you. Dennis Sadowski, Catholic News Service. I wanted to ask Bishop O'Connell, there's been some criticism of CCHD of affiliating with quote-unquote Marxist organizations. I'm wondering how you respond to that, because CCHD seems to follow, I mean, we've seen that over 50 years, it does seem to follow the teachings of Catholic social teaching. So address that. I mean, there's a lot of criticisms that have evolved every year, seemingly around the times that either the bishops meet or the collection's happening.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you for that question. Yes, the Campaign for Human Development is always conscious of the need to look at every organization that we fund and every project we fund to make sure that it is living up to all the challenges of our Catholic social teaching, and we constantly monitor that. Of course, part of the work is, as I was saying today at my presentation, is building alliances with organizations and neighborhoods and communities so we can form kind of public friendships in order to bring about change and to change the circumstances that are destroying people's lives or affecting people's lives in bad ways. And when you do that, building of relationships and building of coalitions, and it's not always cut and dried. It's not always, can't always be. You can't check with everybody you've been in a relationship with to see what their particular beliefs are or what motivates their actions. But we try to make sure that we are staying true to the teachings of our faith. We're motivated by our love for Jesus Christ and our love for each other. We exercise compassion and mercy, and try to be understanding, and try to be tolerant, and try to overlook certain things in order that we can build these coalitions to help the people. So it's never clean, cut and dried, but we're really always review all these criticisms and see what's if there's any validity to them. Once in a while over the years we have separate ourselves from organizations that couldn't live up to our Catholic social teachings and our Judeo-Christian values, but mostly we'll continue to try and work with people as much as possible, but we do review them and hold people accountable. Yeah.
Okay. Peter?
Hello, I'm Peter Smith with the Associated Press. This is a question for Bishop Rhodes or Bishop Cousins. You've spoken about the concern about the crisis in belief regarding the Eucharist. I wonder, do you think the debate that has attended this whole document in the months leading up to it might have actually caused more of a crisis in terms of people, Catholics, concerned about the politicization of the Eucharist?
I would say that perhaps the debate helped the general public know how important the Eucharist is, or we wouldn't even be having debates about reception of the Holy Eucharist. So, but I really, I don't think there's been any, I would say that certain bishops are very concerned on this issue, many bishops, about the proper disposition for receiving Holy Communion. I think shows how we recognize what a great gift the Eucharist is, and the proper reverence that it calls for. So I think perhaps it just has brought more people to be attentive to why this debate? Well, it's because the Eucharist is our center of our lives as Catholics. It's Jesus himself. So maybe that's a positive thing that can result.
Do you think that it would have more of a positive effect, or do you think that more people might be turned off by this whole discussion?
Yeah, I mean, clearly some people were turned off because there was differences of opinion. But I do think that one of the things that our committee worked hard at is to, in that last part, talking about the importance of our transformation by and through the Eucharist and the call to conversion. That all of us, and every time we go to Mass, we profess that, Lord, I am not worthy. And I think that, I hope that it's a call to conversion so that people also understand how we are called to be consistent and how we're called to live the Eucharist by our love for one another, our love and protection of the unborn, of the migrant, the refugee, the poor. We list all of that in our document, that our worship and our living the gospel, it can't be separated. We're called to live the gospel. Now, none of us does perfectly. The Eucharist nourishes us and strengthens us to live the gospel. But it's important that we be in communion with Christ and the church and the teachings of the church. That's what Eucharistic consistency is.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question goes to Greg Erlinson.
This is for Bishop Cepeda, and just looking forward, or looking beyond the June national meeting for journeying together, I'm wondering what are your hopes for the long-term fruits of this initiative, and do you see it in any way converging with the synodal process that's going to be happening over the next 3 years?
Thank you for your question. I believe that, as my experience, my personal experience in journeying together with our young adults from all over the nation gives me great hope of a church that is united, a church that has a mission, a church that is very much aware of the reality of our world, a church that wants to be transforming our culture. And I think that is part of the fruits that we have experienced with our young adults, with our youth, as we were moving into the pandemic. I had a clear message, as I was just having the experience of interacting with them and, this synodal dialogue with them with different cultures. I had no doubt that this is moved by the Spirit, and that gives me great hope. The way I see it as we move into this dialogue and as we continue to listen to their stories, their plans, their vision, and as we continue to be open to in that dialogue, that's what is going to transform us and what is going to transform our world. So again, it just gives me great hope, deep hope to understand that, we're working in this, we're working together, that we are walking with each other again, as pastors and with our young people, and really living out that synodal spirit. That's precisely what our Pope Francis asked from the church, beginning that, synod of with the young people, with our youth in 2018. That was kind of the vision presented to the world, and we're doing it. So,
thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Next question goes to Brian.
Hi, Brian Fraga, the National Catholic Reporter. My question is regarding the need for this document, as to hear about that there's a crisis in faith and understanding of the Eucharist, but my question is, what is the evidence of that? Because I only hear like anecdotal things said, and a study that's often cited that there are questions as to how the question itself was framed. So in the end, how do you know that there's a real crisis of understanding of what Eucharist is?
Well, I would say, yes, there is some discussion or debate about the study. But I think what's very clear is mass attendance. I mean, we know about the decline in Sunday Mass attendance. So it would seem to me that if there was a greater understanding and appreciation for the gift of the Eucharist, more people would be going to Sunday Mass. So that's, I think, most, prominent in the need for this.
I would just add that we are, we did see that there was some problems with the Pew study and questions about how they used the words like transubstantiation. Those are all valid questions, which was the 2019 study that said, less than 30% of Catholics believe in the real presence of the Eucharist. So we are redoing that study. Kara is just redoing that study even as we speak to be able to try to get at some of the deeper issues. But the Pew study wasn't the ultimate thing that convinced the bishops there was a crisis. It was the fact that we know 75% of Catholics don't go to Mass on Sunday. If people believed in the Eucharist, how could they possibly miss Mass on Sunday? This is the greatest gift that Jesus wants to give us, and so we know that's a real crisis.
About the Mass attendance, couldn't it also be said that people are not going to church on Sundays because of issues related to, like, they were turned off to the church by how the bishops handled the sex abuse crisis, for example? I guess my question is, like, could it be more complicated as to why people are not attending Mass than just say that they understand what the Eucharist is?
Sure, and there could be lots of reasons why an individual wouldn't go to Mass, right? Maybe, God forbid, they've been hurt in some way. But it's my experience, even, for example, in working with people who have been hurt by priests or by the church, that actually the Eucharist can be part of that source of healing, and that when they believe in Jesus' real presence in the Eucharist, even if they struggle, it helps them struggle to come back, And this is part of our ancient teaching of the church that we call ex opere operato, right? Which is the Eucharist, the gift of Christ in the Eucharist isn't dependent upon how good the homily is or how good the priest is or how good the celebration is, even though all that stuff's really important. And so it's helping people come to understand that that Jesus has a greater gift to give us in the Eucharist than even the particular struggles I might have.
Thank you.
Last question goes to Jack Jenkins.
Hi, Jack Jenkins with Religion News Service. Just a quick question. You already kind of spoke about how, one of the things about this document is that it lists other things than, say, just abortion, concern for the immigrant. And there was even efforts to introduce, poverty into that language as well. And I also know that you don't control your brother bishops, but, the Vatican did send that letter earlier this year, arguing that it could be misleading if there was a debate that suggested that abortion and euthanasia were the only grave matters of Catholic moral and social teaching that demand the fullest level of accountability on the part of Catholics. I know this document isn't centrally focused on, denying people communion, but I'm curious, do you think this debate, steered clear of that? Do you think that the perception did, in fact, steer people in a direction to say that the Catholic teaching is larger than just abortion and euthanasia?
Yeah, I think when we looked at the social implications of the Eucharist, we talked about, for example, the call to see Christ in the least of our brothers and sisters, in the poor, the suffering, the unborn child, the migrant, the refugee. So that's a special call. We used Mother Teresa as an example. We recognize Christ's presence in the Blessed Sacrament, and we are also called to recognize his presence in the weak and the vulnerable and the suffering. I think that's very strong in the document. I think when it comes to the question about reception of Holy Communion, we did do what I said we would do back in June, and that is we gave the doctrinal and theological background to those two canons, Canon 915 and Canon 916. So I would say we did not skirt the issue. We answered really the question, why, for example, getting to the background of those two canons. So, but then the application, and this is what's key for the letter from Cardinal Ladaria, I mean, the application is up to individual bishops. That's not the role of the conference. We don't have any authority as a body of bishops. Those two canons need to be applied by the individual bishops. So I think that, so there's two parts answering that question. And it gets back to, the importance of Eucharistic consistency and our striving to live the gospel, to live what we receive and what we experience at Mass, which is the self-giving love of Christ for us. And that's what becomes present on the altar.
Before we conclude things, I wanted to take a quick moment to thank Bishop Burbidge for his leadership as chairman on the Committee for Communications. His chairmanship ends at the conclusion of this week's meeting. Your Excellency, I wanted to provide you an opportunity to give some concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Chaco. My Bishop Robert Reed, the Auxiliary Bishop of Boston, will assume the position of Chair of Communications and will do an excellent job. My 3 years as Chair has given me the opportunity to work with a wonderful team here at the USCCB, James, Chaco, and all of the team, and I'm really grateful for your support. I've always appreciated the time spent at these conferences too, the time that we spent together, and appreciate how you, the members of the media, those times that you have covered the good work of the conference and even the number of initiatives these past few years that have surfaced and help us to spread the good news. So thanks so much for that. I think my short time here as chair, these 3 years, has also given me a closer look and a glimpse at your work. And it's clear that your work is so important, obviously, but it also has its demands and its challenges. And I ask God to bless you, to bless your initiatives, and to bless all of your endeavors. And it's my hope and prayer that the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and the media will continue to engage with one another with mutual respect and always for the glory of God. So thank you for your service, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, Bishop Burbidge, and thank you, Your Excellencies, for your time this afternoon. And thank you also, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for your coverage of the Bishops' meeting. This concludes the press conferences for the 2021 General Assembly. Have a good evening.